What is going on, guys? JS Power here, and welcome to your no-nonsense guide on how to get into Warframe in 2021. This series of videos will help you, a new player coming to Warframe, to get used to the game. Now, Warframe is a free-to-play looter shooter made by Digital Extremes, and it is set in a futuristic sci-fi fantasy setting. So, if you like games like Destiny or Outriders, which just came out recently, or anything like that, you'll pretty much be right at home in this game. It is very fun to play, and one of the biggest, most extreme features about Warframe is its movement and customization. This game lets you really play it your own way, and a lot of players tend to not realize this and usually leave the game because the game is also notorious for having a very, very bad sort of introduction and teaching you how to play the game. And so a lot of people get really complete the tutorial, don't really know what they're supposed to do or how to do anything or really understand the game in any shape or form, and tend to pretty much give up pretty early on. In this series, I hope to basically rectify a lot of that. So do watch as many of these videos as you need to, as trust me, this game, once you've learned it, once you understand it, once you get going on it, is 100% worth playing, and it's completely free. It'll definitely astound you. It definitely astounded me. Just give it a try, and if you still don't like it after a while, then, you know, to each their own, but I would still recommend giving it a try. So the first thing you'll want to do is create a Warframe account. Now, on console, this is very easy, as you simply just have to download the game, boot it up, and you'll automatically be given a Warframe account tied to that console, which you can log into on your respective platform at the Warframe website. If you're on PC, you will have to make a Warframe account on the official website, but you'll also have to choose which platform you like to play on. The game is on multiple platforms, such as Steam and Epic Games, so you'll have to choose which version you'd like to download. I would highly recommend the Steam version, as, of course, there's something called Tenogen cosmetics, which basically are community-created cosmetics that you can purchase and customize and to your heart's content, but they only show up on the Steam marketplace. So if you want to see those, you'll have to actually download the Steam version. Once you're done, you simply have to just boot up the game, log into your account, and you'll be presented with a tutorial mission and a beautiful cutscene to introduce you to the game. I do recommend, though, that you do actually watch the cutscene, as the cutscene is pretty badass, and unlike most games of this type, the cutscene does actually represent the game fairly well to an extent. Almost everything you see in the cutscene you can actually do in-game to a certain extent, obviously. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and skip it. You'll be then presented after the cutscene with 3 options to choose. These are basically your Warframes, your basically characters that you play as. You'll be presented with 3 choices: Excalibur, Mag, and Volt. Now, it's important to note that you will be able to play all 3 of these characters and earn all 3 of these characters at the same time. This is simply your starting Warframe, and if you want my personal opinion, I would suggest you go with Volt, as Volt is a clan exclusive, and basically both Excalibur and Mag can be earned pretty early on in the game, but Volt is clan exclusive, which means you cannot get him unless you're in a clan. If you plan to make a clan, then I would say the choice is yours, really. But that being said, I would recommend Volt. But if you really don't really care and don't really care about getting all 3 characters or all the characters, I will demo them for you really quickly so that you can make a more informed decision. Should you choose to run with Excalibur as your starting Warframe, he has 4 abilities centered around his Exalted Blade. Now, an Exalted Blade is pretty much is what Excalibur's exalted weapon, which basically means that some Warframes, their abilities are tied to their bodies, where some Warframes have an exterior weapon that they can customize and mod to your heart's content that pretty much give them their power. For Excalibur, that is his Exalted Sword. Now, Excalibur's first ability with his Exalted Sword is Slash Dash, which pretty much just means that you dash forward with your sword, taking out one or multiple enemies, and in a flurry of rushing attacks, which pretty much on low levels will pretty much kill anything pretty easily. His second ability, which is Radial Blind. Now, I'm using Excalibur Umbra, which is a variant of Excalibur, which do not worry too much about that, though. They're pretty much the same character, minus some stat changes, and when it really matters, you will pretty much have Excalibur Umbra by the time it really matters anyway. But his second ability is Radial Blind, although this is Radial Howl in Umbra's form, but it does the same exact thing. It'll pretty much blind enemies and open them up to finishers, and that is pretty much that. Excalibur's third ability, which is Radial Javelin, which is pretty badass as it launches a bunch of sort of like mini swords into the enemies. Usually, low-level enemies will basically go flying across the room and then be impaled to walls, which is pretty badass. It can, modded correctly, it can clear pretty easily a room of low-level enemies, no problem. And finally, the bread and butter of Excalibur is his Exalted Blade, which is pretty much his exalted weapon, as I said earlier, but you can actually pull it out, and what it does is it replaces your normal melee with the Exalted Blade, and when you melee with it, you will see that it will send out an actual slash through the air, which actually does damage to targets, which is pretty awesome, and you can send them out really fast in succession, and it does lots of damage when modded correctly. As you're seeing here, I'm taking out these group of high-level enemies with very, very easy precision. I should note that these are level 120 Heavy Corrupted Gamir, which are pretty much the enemies that most veteran players use to test out their endgame builds. So the fact that I'm taking them out shows you that Excalibur is a pretty powerful Warframe to start out with. But do not sleep on the other ones, as they all have the potential to be endgame killers if modded right and done right. Should you choose to run Volt instead of Excalibur as your starting frame, note he does not come with an exalted weapon, but his abilities are still impressive nonetheless, as they deal around electricity. One of Volt's first abilities is to cast a bolt of lightning towards a single enemy that deals massive damage and also affects other enemies nearby, also inflicting them with small amounts of damage, which is pretty useful. And in low levels, it can actually take out enemies pretty well. His second ability is basically a dash ability, which increases his speed, as you'll see here. He moves pretty agile and pretty fast with the second ability active. This also affects nearby allies and does grant a increase to attack speed. As you'll see here, once it runs out, I slow down. My melees slow down pretty effectively. So it does give a boost to attack speed and does affect nearby allies, so it can be a great supporting ability for you and your friends. Volt's third ability is his shield. Now the shield is very important, as it can be placed stationary or picked up and moved around with Volt, and any projectile fired through it gets increased damage. Now that damage pretty much changes depending on your modding, as most Warframes, modding is required to make them uber powerful. But this is the key ability here that actually is what makes Volt very special in in-game activities, as this can take out bosses pretty easily when modded correctly because of its damage increase. Volt's final ability is a really good crowd controlling method. It sends out a massive burst of electricity that stuns nearby enemies, giving you pretty much a really good crowd control and small amounts of damage. But it can also clear rooms in low levels. I'm telling you, this has really good nuke potential if you mod it correctly, as it's just really nasty in low levels. But it can also be good in high levels as well, because it does prevent enemies from hurting you. As you can see, they're pretty much stunned. So if you have a good weapon, you can pop that, stun the enemies, and basically shoot them and kill them pretty easily with a decent modded weapon. And that's pretty much Volt. He's a really good frame. I definitely would recommend him if you do not choose Excalibur. And finally, should you not choose either Excalibur or Volt, one of the least picked frames at the start, which is Mag, which really shouldn't be, because she is actually pretty technical, and if you know how to use her right, she can be one of your greatest allies in the battle against the enemies. But in that case, her powers deal around magnetic, as she also does not have an exalted weapon. One of her first abilities is called Pull, which basically pulls enemies in close to melee range, and if modded right, as you can see, it really does really pulls them a lot, and can be acted as a great crowd control. Pretty fun as well. Her second ability, which is Magnetize, has two parts to it. The first one is if you tap the ability, it creates a magnetic field that pulls enemies within its range in, and anything fired in that range will basically cause damage to the enemies. And as well, when the bubble disappears, it will start to shrink and explode. And basically, the more projectiles you fire into the bubble, the bigger the damage once it finally does end up getting rid of. Regardless, the second thing is if you instead hold that ability, the magnetic field is then generated around mag, which collects enemy damage that fires at you, and then when you release it, sends it right back to the enemy, which I've tested it out. It's not really that great of an ability, but that's not why people use mag. Alright? So, her third ability is pretty special, as it can definitely open up some really good in-game possibilities for you, as it is pretty much, you send out a big burst of magnetic energy, which removes enemy shields and armor, which is really important for endgame, as it's one of the major reasons why damage cannot be done to enemies, is that they have a lot of armor. Usually these enemies here have tons of armor and pretty much are hard to kill because of it. So stripping armor and shields is definitely a really good way to deal damage to enemies. Pretty nice. And when paired with Magnetize, it can be very devastating to pretty much anything that gets in its way. As you can see, they are pretty much controlled, and it is awesome. I've seen a lot of people use mag, and this combination with mag, using a very powerful weapon setup and clear in-game rooms pretty easily. Finally, mag's fourth ability is one that you'll probably be using a lot more often in low levels, which is her pretty much crush ability. She basically grabs enemies and magnetizes their bones, causing them to collapse in on each other in a devastating fashion, and it is pretty awesome. Now, notice they still get back up, so it's a little hokey because their bones are gone, but they're still able to walk. But regardless, it's fun to watch to clear a whole room full of enemies by simply just popping that and then just watching them all get crushed to death. It is pretty satisfying. All frames in this list in the starting set are really useful. Doesn't matter really which one you choose. It matters on the situation you plan to get in. If you want an easy time early on through the junctions and clearing planets and getting things done, use Excalibur. If you want something that can basically potentially be a good boss killer for endgame, use Volt. And if you want something that can do in-game normal missions and room clears, use mag. Really, it's situational. You can pretty much get all three of these frames anyway, pretty darn easily. Personally, if you want my recommendation, I would say go for Vault, as he is a clan exclusive, because Excalibur and mag can be easily farmed early on and pretty much built, and you'll have all three, so it won't even matter. You will have a little bit of a struggle at the start clearing some of the junctions, as Frost has been known to kick a lot of people's butts early on when trying to get to Mars, which is important, as Mars and Phobos are where you would collect Excalibur and mag. But in saying that, deal with it. It's worth it, trust me, as you will have all three and you won't have to choose by the end of it. And especially since you'll end up getting a better version of Excalibur later on anyway, which I can't talk about too much because spoilers. But anyway, this is the three frame starting frames, and decision is yours. Either way, you'll have fun regardless of your choice. So we'll be moving right along. Alright, so with that being said, once you've chosen your Warframe, you simply hit confirm, and you'll be taken into the tutorial mission. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip the cutscene here, as I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. But you simply have to just follow the tutorial, which tells you about the basic information of the game and how to move and set. But do not worry, if you don't get it all at first, I will have a separate video that I'll be making, talking about the actual in-game mechanics and all such of that. So do not worry about that. Once you get done with the tutorial beginning bit, you'll basically be presented with the choice between a melee weapon. Now this is, again, one of those choices that don't really matter, as you can get both of these in-game pretty easily. But if you want my personal recommendation, I would definitely go for the Skana, but really the choice does not matter. It is yours to make. Now moving right along, we have your second choice in the tutorial mission, and this is your secondary weapon. Now you have throwing kunai or a pistol. Again, you can get both of these pretty easy earlier on. But if you want my personal opinion, I would go with the Lado, as it is a weapon and you can fire it. And honestly, the kunai can be hard to aim with for new players if you're not used to the controls. So go ahead and use that pistol. You can easily pick the kunai up later on. Alright, once you get further into the tutorial, you'll come to one of your final decisions in the tutorial, which is for your primary weapon. Once again, it really is up to you, but if you want a stealth weapon, if you've chosen Lado before, You can choose the Paris to act as your stealth weapon, or you can use the Bratton, which is an auto rifle, if you're more about guns. Which, I mean, I'm more about guns anyway. I don't really stealth much in Warframe, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that. But the choice is really up to you. Again, both options are open to you, no matter what you choose. Finally, you'll come to your extraction ship, and all you simply have to do is clear the enemies, activate the hack terminal, interact with that, and then once you've completed that puzzle, you'll basically be asked to defend your starting ship as the ship warms up to finish off the tutorial.
Operator, is that you?
Once you're finished with the tutorial quest, you'll be asked to finish a quest called War's Prize, which is pretty much your restoring your ship and getting its vital systems back online, and just kind of getting yourself settled into the various mission types of the game. It's very easy. Go ahead and do that. You must do it before you can continue in Warframe. I've already completed it, so I cannot really show you it here, but it's fairly easy. You'll get through it in no time at all. So go ahead and complete those missions, and then once you finish War's Prize, you'll be pretty much ready to continue on with the next part of your journey. Before we continue on, I'd like to go over one of the big features of Warframe, which is its movement. Warframe's movement system is by far one of the best I've ever played in a looter shooter, by far. Literally, none can contest it. It is super fun, super addicting. Once you master it, you will never want to put it down. To start out with, you pretty much have your basics, like jump, you have your crouch, you have your sprint function, you have your aim and shoot. Pretty standard stuff, but you have a double jump. You also have a slide, and if you jump after sliding, or during your slide, you'll do a bullet jump, which is a big leap forward, and you can combine the two to really get a lot of speed. As you'll see here, you can chain it together and really get moving as really fast around the map. You also have a dodge roll, which if you combine that with your initial combo of bullet jumping, you'll see that it lets you zip around the map very fast. You can also jump up walls and pretty much just run up walls. And you can also do this sideways and leaping across the walls, sort of a wall running. So again, you have a lot of choices to you. You can also, I believe, grip onto the walls, if I remember how to do that. There you go, allowing you to survey the area for a short time and then boost off of it. You have bullet travel time, which pretty much allows you to slow down time, and you can fire in air. It is pretty satisfying. And you can also combine that to do a very good leap forward. So as you can see, we got a big gap here. If I go ahead and slide, double jump, and then do a bullet time, you'll see that I can literally make this amazing gap here without even breaking a sweat. And you can shoot while doing that. So you have a very good moveset to go through, and it is very addicting once you've learned to master it. To do some of the basic stuff, you simply just have to slide, you should pretty much use your crouch button, the same button that you crouch with. You simply just have to hold it down while moving forward. You can also do this while in a sprint as well. So to do your bullet jump, as I said, you just simply combine your slide with your jump. And you can also do that in any direction you would like. So if you actually do it from a standstill position, you can look at an angle or look directly up, and then you can boost directly up as well. A lot of people don't actually know that in the beginning. And to simply dodge roll, you will have to use your sprint button to just tap it rather than hold it, and you'll do a sort of dodge roll. Now, again, a lot of this is relative to you depending on whether you're using controller or keyboard or mouse. I play on keyboard and mouse, obviously, but once you figure out what you're doing, it's really not that hard to get into, and you'll definitely master it in no time at all. But I definitely wanted to at least show you these things because it is really important that you get used to these things, as they will be almost required in in-game activities. Otherwise, because the less you move and the more you stand still in Warframe, the more you will inevitably and utterly die a horrible death. So get used to the movement. It's a lot of fun, very addicting, and you will need it in endgame. So once you've completed the tutorial mission and War's Prize, you'll pretty much have your orbiter fully restored. Now, this orbiter can be decorated to your heart's content, as there's plenty of stuff that you can earn in the game to pretty much make it your own home space, as this is your actual home space in the game where you'll be spending a lot of your time. So make it your own, give it a good color. You can do this by simply going to the options, going to equipment, going to your orbiter, and then you can decorate, change its appearance and the outside appearance itself, or the landing craft itself once you've earned another one. And it's endless customization. You can give it all the colors you want, and it is pretty neat. But to take a tour of your orbiter real quick before we go over what you should be doing in the game, To the right of the front of your orbiter, you have the marketplace, which is where you purchase stuff with platinum and or real world dollars. You do not have to, I cannot stress this enough, you do not have to buy a lot of stuff. If you want to spend money on the game, it's perfectly fine, but there are ways in the game to earn a lot of the gameplay functional items in the game. You do not, and even some cosmetics, you do not have to buy a lot of the stuff. Some things you will, which include the Tenogen items, as they are community created, and so they want to pay, of course, the community for their hard work, and some various other things, but you do not have to buy a lot of the gameplay stuff, so please keep that in mind. Next, to the left of the front of your orbiter, you have pretty much your codex. Now, this is where you'll find a lot of your quests in the game that you can complete. You'll also have a universe tab full of information about the game, the various frames that you've and vehicles you've mastered, companions, all sorts of other stuff which we'll go into, your mod collection. A lot of this stuff is very, very good, so I would definitely check it out when you get the chance. Laverian, in case you're interested on some of the backstory of certain frames. There are not a lot of frames in here, but it is interesting stuff if you want to check out some of the frames they do have in here and listen to their stories. Training, pretty much a tutorial segment for information, but as much as this is nice, it really doesn't teach you a lot of the main things you will need, so that's what these videos are for, obviously. And then, of course, you have missions, which basically talk about the different mission types in the game. So it's pretty much your one-stop shop for information on the game, but as I said, do not worry too much about that. Heading down into your orbiter, you have your main compartment, of course. To the right, you'll have your fabricator, which you'll be spending a lot of time at as you've restored it. Quite clearly, this is the place where you'll be crafting a lot of your in-game stuff. As you'll see here, you can actually craft frames in the game. You do not have to buy them. Again, you can craft them in-game. You can craft the weapons. You can craft secondaries, melees. You can even craft new spaceships, new orbiters for your liking. You can craft various things, cosmetics, and all sorts of other stuff. So please keep in mind there is plenty to do that you do not have to purchase. So once again, in reiterating, free-to-play game, do not have to spend money on. So please keep that in mind. Over to the left, you have the mod station. You'll be spending a lot of time here as well, as mods are single-handedly the most important part of the game and where you'll be doing most of your gameplay customization, as these will be very, very important to your weapons and warframes to make them uber powerful. To simply say this is where all your mods will be, you have different tabs for various things as warframes, and different tabs to basically know which what type of mods you're dealing with. They will say on the mod itself what they do, and you can also upgrade a mod by simply selecting it here, going to fusion, and basically increasing its stat. And this will cost you credits and endo, which basically are the end-game currency in which you buy things and upgrade things. So make sure you have a lot of those, because you will be doing a lot of upgrading. As you'll see here, the stats of this mod will go up with every rank I put on it. Do not worry about maxing out certain mods. Some mods will cost you a fuck ton of endo and credits to max out. So just my opinion, if you have a mod early on, if you have a mod that requires as I said, metric fuck ton of stuff to actually do anything with, like Serration, which is a very important mod as it increases rifle damage, just simply bump it up to, I would say, probably about rank 5 or 6. Should be perfectly fine. Do not really worry about maxing it out. This will be fine for early game. You really only need to worry about maxing these things out at end game. So just put it at 5 or 6 for now, and you'll be perfectly fine. So another thing you'll need to know about mods is you'll early on get something called flawed mods, which are basically the same things that you're seeing there, but they'll have actually a flawed on the text when you hover over them. Do not upgrade those mods. They are pretty much just starter kit mods to help you get into the game. You'll be quickly replacing them. Do not upgrade them. Just throw them on your character as is and wait for the better version to show up, and then you'll pretty much be set. Then you can upgrade that instead. Do not make the mistake of upgrading flawed mods. Although there are many other things in your orbiter to explore and mess with, as you'll find out throughout your journey. The last thing I want to talk about, at least in this video, is of course your Warframe arsenal. This is very, very important. This is where you'll basically be selecting your various characters, equipping your various weapons, upgrading them, customizing them, and then taking them out into the battlefield, of course. So to start out with, we have your Warframe. You simply click equip and you'll basically get a list of various Warframes that you either have or don't have to select from. Now, these are the Warframes that I don't have. As you see, they can be purchased with real money with the in-game currency, but you do not have to do this. In fact, I would highly recommend you never do this unless you're absolutely desperate and just really want that one specific character and you're willing to pay for it, but you really, really do not have to. I cannot stress this enough. If you want to build a Warframe, you can pretty much build all of these characters you see before you for completely free. So, that being said, if you want to build a Warframe, you simply click on the character that you want to make. You buy its blueprint for the in-game currency that you earn, not buy, and then you collect its various components from various different means, such as killing bosses or doing various in-game functions. It really depends. There's specific places for specific Warframes. As I said earlier, Excalibur and Mag can be farmed from Mars and Phobos. Now, to do this, you have to fight a particular boss on Mars, which drops one of the parts at random. And the same thing goes for Phobos. For Mag, you simply kill a boss, it'll drop some of its parts, which then you can go back to your fabricator, as you saw earlier, and can then craft with resources you earn in-game, and pretty much that. So what you'll need to do is simply buy the blueprint, as I said earlier, which will show up in here, collect its various components, and once you have the resources required to build that component, you build it, and it will show up here as a check mark. Once you have all three components built and the required Orokin cells, or other components if it requires other components, you simply go ahead and craft the Warframe, and when it is complete, it'll be in your arsenal and you will be able to collect it, and it will be here and you'll be able to use it, level it, play with it. It's quite awesome. There's a caveat to this, and I'll get to that in a minute. Moving on to weapons. As you see here, you have a primary, a secondary, and a melee. All of these, once again, can be earned in-game. You do not have to buy them. You simply click equip, and you'll see the list of weapons that you have, and of course ones you don't have. Now, some like Warframe, some of these are clan exclusive. If you go to build requirements right here where the blueprint says, it'll say recipe for Batacore can be researched in the energy lab dojo room. Anytime you see something with a lab dojo room on it, it pretty much means that you have to be in a clan in order to access that particular content. There are plenty of clans in Warframe willing to accept you, so do not worry too much about that. But if there are weapons in here that you can craft normally without a clan, such as the Rubico here. The Rubico Prime is Rubico is a sniper rifle that you can purchase, of course, with, once again, the in-game currency that you do not buy. And unlike Warframes, though, this one only simply requires you to gather enough resources to craft it, and you'll be pretty much done. As you see, but some weapons, some do actually require you to gather pieces of that weapon, just like a Warframe. I do believe I actually have one here in my foundry, if I can go here. Yeah, the Shedu, right here. The Shedu, as you see, I do not have the pieces for it, and I pretty much have to find out where to get those pieces. And then once I do get all the pieces, I can just craft it right away, and it'll be mine once it's complete. Same thing goes for melees and secondaries. On this tab, you also can manage your companions, which I have quite a lot. Once again, you have your animal companions, which you'll be able to earn these in a quest later on. You'll basically unlock the ability to start making these in a quest, so do not really worry about them too much right now. But you'll also be able to craft robotic companions, which, once again, some of them lock behind clans, some of them you can earn in game, like the Taxon, which I do believe you can get the Taxon pretty early on. Go ahead and craft one of these. These little guys can actually help you in battle as well. Companions are great, and some are necessary, like the Helios Prime's Destructor Prime for certain in-game builds. So that's pretty much the basics of your Orbiter. Again, there's a lot more to your Orbiter to go through, but right now that's pretty much all you need to know for the current time being. We'll go over a little bit more of the other stuff later in a different video. So the last thing I want to talk about in this video, now that you've pretty much got some of the basics down, is what you'll be doing in Warframe. Again, a lot of players get to this point, beat the tutorial and War's Prize, kind of get lost and not sure what pretty much their goals are for the game. And so basically, to start off with, what you should primarily focus on at the beginning, at least in my opinion, is go up to the front of your ship and you'll interact with this thing called a navigation console, which will pretty much present you with your star chart, as the players will call it. And this is pretty much all your levels and different things and places you can go to collect resources and various things of that nature. Now, the way this works, alright, is you'll start off on Earth, and you'll pretty much have a lot of these done by the time you complete Vor's Prize, but the way planets work is that you'll start with a specific mission, and all the missions around that planet will be locked, and to progress to get to those missions unlocked, you simply just have to connect the dots. Complete this mission to unlock this mission, to unlock this mission, to unlock this and this mission, and it kind of just spreads out from there. And you just pretty much keep doing this, connecting the dots, completing mission after mission, until you reach what's called a junction. Now, a junction is pretty much, I guess you could call it your planetary, how do I put this? It's basically a boss fight that helps you to unlock the next planet in the list. Basically, if you hover over the junction, for example, the Venus junction, you'll be getting a list of requirements in order to take on this junction that you have to complete. For example, this one requires you to complete the Vor's Prize quest, which you've already completed, obviously. You need to collect 20 mods, apply 4 mods to a single Warframe and or weapon, which means 4 mod cards, and then you need to upgrade one of your mods to at least rank 2, as I showed you in your mod, on that mod menu earlier. Once you have completed all 4 of the tasks that this junction requires you to complete, you simply go ahead and enter that junction, and you'll be tasked with taking out a boss in order to proceed to the next planet. So you're going to go ahead and interact with that, go take out the boss, which is, for me, is very easy because I obviously have good stuff. And then you'll pretty much come up to this little console here, interact with it, you'll get a little cutscene, and pretty much you will have unlocked the next planet. And you pretty much just keep doing that for each and every planet as you progress, completing missions, collecting resources, mods, parts, and all sorts of stuff that along your journey. Coming back to the star chart here, there's a few things I do want to actually talk about here on the star chart. So every planet has different mission types along the way. As you see, this has actually that's a quest, but basically you have an exterminate here, you'll have a capture mission here, a defense mission, a spy mission, all different types of missions that have their own unique gameplay styles. But things to also note is that you also have certain types of missions that are unique, such as this one. This is a normal defense mission, but this mission has a mission bonus, which is that basically it drops more resource, it has a boosted resource drop chance, an extra affinity, which is basically your XP of the game. Pretty much this is a good place to bring your starter Warframes and level them up early on so that you can get them leveled quicker. You also have a different mission type, like this one right here. This is called an assassination mission. Basically, every planet has at least one of these, and this is pretty much the boss of the planet. And this is important because this is where you're going to be getting a lot of your early Warframe parts. As I mentioned earlier, to craft a Warframe, you need its blueprint and its various parts, and the parts drop from bosses. This is the boss of Earth, and he drops Hydroid's parts, the Warframe Hydroid. So if you ever want to craft Hydroid, you'll have to come here and do that as well. There's other things to talk about here, such as the various open worlds. There are currently 3 open worlds in Warframe. This is the Earth open world, which is Cetus, and the Plains of Eidolon. Cetus is pretty much a public lobby where you do certain things. Basically, the open worlds themselves have their own progression path, their own cosmetics, resources, their own loot and warframes and weapons to collect, their own mods, their own various decorations and stuff like that. They have their own stuff to work on, and they are in kind of their own separate little bubble, but they still do affect the general gameplay outside of the open world, so you'd still want to do them. And basically, the Cetus is basically the public lobby where all the players kind of hang out, chill, socialize, and where you would also turn in and unlock a lot of your stuff for your in the game here. And then the Plains of Eidolon is the actual open world where you go out, do the missions, collect the resources that you can then come take back to Cetus and unlock the various rewards with. The second open world is Fortuna and Orb Valis. Fortuna is the public space. Orb Valis is the open world, and the same process it goes from there. We'll go more into open world grind later. And then finally, you have Deimos, which is the Necros. is your public lobby, and the Cambion Drift is your open world. To get to these, you simply just, again, have to unlock the mission nodes to get to the place you need to go to. Each open world does come with its own quest. I believe Saya's Vigil in your codex, so there'll be a quest called Saya's Vigil. This is for the Plains of Eidolon quest. Or let's see, Voxelaris is the Fortuna quest. And then finally, you have the Heart of Deimos quest, which is pretty much just Heart of Deimos, and that is in the Cambion Drift and Necrolis open worlds. And that's pretty much what you'll be doing from the start, is just working on the open worlds, progressing and unlocking and finishing missions, collecting resources and mods to kind of upgrade yourself, and eventually taking out a junction boss and a world boss to collect more Warframes and unlock various rewards. As you see here, by completing this one, you'll get a Furious Blueprint, a Northwind mod, and various things. Some of the junctions do have quests locked behind them. For example, if I go here, Mercury Junction on Venus actually provides you the Once Awake quest, which is very important, as quests are pretty much your story progression in the game. And then, of course, this also has a world boss, which is on Fossa. This is provides you the Warframe Rhino. And then Mercury here has let's see, where was it? There it is. This assassination here. This actually doesn't give you a Warframe, I believe. This actually gives you a few weapons, but don't worry about that. So go ahead, complete your progression path, keep unlocking quests, unlocking new things, and leveling up your gear, and pretty much continuing on from there. It's pretty easy and self-explanatory. But one more thing I need to note before we end this video is that as you level gear, and this is very important, as you level gear in Warframe, you will be earning what's called affinity. Affinity is pretty much the XP of the game, and as you earn affinity by killing enemies and all sorts of stuff, you'll pretty much start leveling your Warframe and weapons. And as you're doing that, you'll also be leveling up your Mastery XP. Now, what this is pretty much, if you come to your name here, right, and you'll see a big white bar here. Under my name, I'm Mastering rank 18. Which is important to note. I'll explain mastery ranks here in a minute, but the white bar underneath my name is pretty much my Mastery XP bar. And every time that bar fills up by leveling up various amounts of gear to their max rank, I will unlock a Master Rank test. Now, Master Ranks in Warframe are pretty much like the Call of Duty prestiges, I guess. As you level up in Call of Duty's multiplayer, you get to a certain threshold, and then you can prestige. But instead of resetting your level and losing all your stuff like in the old days of COD, you unlock stuff, the ability to collect certain stuff, and you also progress forward. It's a continuous progression forward, and there's currently 30 master ranks in the game, and they are definitely something you want to do, as certain planets and objectives and quests are locked behind them. I believe currently the highest master locked quest in the game is Master Rank 7, and I think that was I honestly forget at the moment, current juncture. But yes, you will need to reach certain master ranks to do certain story quests and unlock certain pieces of gear and new weapons, new warframes, and progress through the star chart. So be making sure that you're leveling up your gear as well, so that you can unlock those master rank tests. Now, when you get a master rank test, when your bar fills, you'll pretty much go into your pause menu, and you'll basically see at the very top, it'll say Master Rank Test available or something like that, and you'll be able to click on it and take that test. Hold up before you do that, though. Before you do that, this is very important information, alright? Master Rank Tests are not like Call of Duty Prestiges, in which you just click Prestige and you get the thing. They actually are an actual test, which contain various challenges in the game, which I will demonstrate here shortly. If you fail a Master Rank test, if you go into the test and you fail the objective it asks you to do, you will have to wait 24 hours in order to take that test again. But there is a quick solution, and I want to go over that real quick right now. So, around various planets on the world, you will notice something called a relay. These relays are also another social hub, which we'll go more into later, because they are kind of important. We'll go more into that later. But one thing that's in the relay is a place known as the Sanctuary, and this is owned by Cephalon Samaris, which again I will go more into this later. This kind of sounds confusing, but I'll go into it later. And basically, but in this place called the Sanctuary, there actually is a place to practice your Master Rank tests. So we're going to go ahead and journey to the relay here so I can show you that. So once you've arrived at the relay, you'll have to make your way to Cephalon Samaris, as I said earlier. He will basically be sitting in the Sanctuary. Now, don't worry too much, again, about Cephalon Samaris and the Sanctuary right now. Just make your way there, though, because that's where we actually need to go. Now, so every relay is different, and you'll find that some places have different orientations, but what you'll need to find is an elevator that looks like this, which will either take you up or down, depending on the relay, and you pretty much have to find a room marked with this symbol right here. Now, if you ever get lost, you can also just go to Fast Travel, and then click on Cephalon Samaris, and it'll take you right to the Sanctuary. Now, don't worry too much about him just yet. You'll be dealing with him a little bit later, and we'll discuss his stuff later. But if you take a look to your right, you'll notice that there's a staircase, and this is where you'll be able to practice all of your Master Rank tests. Now, if you've already completed the Master Rank test and you walk up to these podiums, you'll see that each one of these represents the Master Rank test that you'll be taking. Now, if I go up to the top here, you'll see that if I go to a Master Rank test that I don't actually own, it'll not let me interact with it. So you can only interact with the ones that you have already unlocked. Now, if I click on this right now, it'll take me into a test, but if you have not completed this test yet, and you have unlocked it officially, it'll give you the option to either take or practice. This is where you'll be able to basically practice your test as much time as you want to get used to it so you don't end up failing miserably and having to wait 24 hours. Once you've practiced the test enough that you feel ready to take it and you're confident that you won't fail it, go ahead and enter the test. This will take you to a simulation room where you will basically engage in whatever test the game wants you to perform. In this case,
Ateno must be a master of all their weapons. Prove yourself with your primary weapon.
In this case, you'll pretty much have to get enemy kills with only your primary weapon. As you see, I do not have a melee equipped. It's pretty much locked my melee and my abilities. I cannot use anything but my primary to kill these enemies. And you simply just want to have to basically complete the mission, complete the wave within the time limit. And this is just Master Rank 1. Every test will be different. Every test will have a different task that will ask you. Some will have times. Some will have unlimited time. And some will have certain restrictions, like you only can fail them like 3 times before you have to wait 24 hours. There's plenty of things, plenty of different tests to take up to Master Rank 30, but just stay calm, practice until you feel comfortable, and then once you feel ready to take on the challenge, go ahead and do that.
Continue.
We're going to continue on to Wave 2 here as the clock will reset, and we'll be given the chance to complete the last wave of enemies. In this one, there's only 3 waves. There we go. To take out, go ahead and finish those guys off. And once the wave is complete, you'll get a completion, and you will be now Master Rank 1. And then you pretty much from that point go ahead and level up more gear to get the bar full again, and then you'll get Master Rank 2. You complete that test, and then you'll fill the bar again to get Master Rank 3, and so forth, unlocking new quests, new rewards, new stand limits, and pretty much a bunch of other stuff, which we'll go more into later. But that being said, that is pretty much Master Rank tests in a nutshell. So going back, and we're going to go ahead and leave the relay. Alright, so that pretty much covers all the basics of the starting points of Warframe. There's still a lot to cover, but I don't want this video to go on any more longer because it already has been quite a long time, in-depth tutorial. We'll go more into modding and all sorts of other things, the relays and certain mission types, all that stuff later on in future videos. So if you, but if this did actually help you, do make sure you leave a comment and drop a like. And if you want to stay up to date on these tutorial guides, do make sure that you also subscribe and turn on notifications as per the norm. But again, that's pretty much the basics of Warframe. Let me know how it goes for you, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.